I gotta say, guys, it's a bold move, making the seasonal exotic an SMG that requires you, or at least advises you, to go to the air in order to proc its buff, especially considering we have airborne effectiveness in the game. With that being said, though, I do want to talk about this exotic SMG that I very much enjoy using. We got to play with it earlier, and this is the seasonal exotic called the Manticore. It's a void exotic submachine gun. It's a 900 round per minute SMG in that 15 impact archetype. Think funnel web, multi-mac, submission, very popular SMGs, guys. Manticore falls right into that. But this weapon is extremely unique though, and I actually think it's only going to get better. It comes with the exotic perk Soaring Fang, which states that dealing damage while grounded charges Anti-Grav repulsors, and dealing damage while airborne extends Anti-Grav repulsors. So you actually see it right here. When you deal damage, you'll have a meter there on the left that actually increases. And the moment you actually take to the air, when you deal any type of damage, whether it's from the hip or aiming down sights, you'll notice the sights here flare out and you are suspended. Now, the reason why I say this is a bold move is because Bungie's like, hey, here's this gun with 30 airborne effectiveness. Have fun hitting your shots. In actuality, it's not bad at landing shots from the air, even with airborne effectiveness present in the game. And if you have the artifact mod in-flight compensator, this actually increases the airborne effectiveness of all equipped weapons. So this actually does make the SMG and other weapons more consistent from the air. But the biggest benefit is actually the trait on this weapon called Swooping Talons, which states that dealing damage while airborne increases the weapon's damage output. Now, this is actually a pretty substantial buff here in damage, guys. Inside of PvP, this increased our crit shot damage from 18 per crit and 11 per body to 22 per crit and around 13 per body. This is about a 22% buff there in its critical damage, which actually drops our TTK value. And by the way, TTK values on this archetype is 0.67 seconds. It's fast, man. It's absolutely a bullet hose. But with that buff there in PvP, if you can land crits, you're looking at a 0.53 second TTK, which is pretty healthy. Granted, you're in the air, and even with the artifact mods, plus the base airborne effectiveness on this gun being 30, which by all means is not bad at all, there is some inaccuracies. Granted, Bungie's already given some indication that airborne effectiveness will be reversed in some way for primary weapons, so I do think that this SMG is only going to get better. What's even more surprising is the buff that Manticore has inside of PvE. On car here, our ground damage is 1,327 per crit and 801 per body. This actually increases to 1,857 per crit and 1,121 per body when shooting from the air. That's a 40% buff there in damage, guys. That is substantial. When you look across the board at like different perks, whether it's kill clip, rampage, swashbuckler, those traits all fall under that and they all require a kill. The beautiful thing here about Manticore is that it just requires you to land hits. So whether you're dealing with like a high health target or something, you can literally get some shots off while on the ground and then proceed to float in the air for that 40% buff. And by the way, this applies both here to Coral as well as minor enemies, which also is a 40% buff there that we've tested. Now, I know most of you are probably saying, Cross, who the heck is going in the air inside of PvE? Seems like a perfect opportunity to get shredded, especially in things like GMs, and rightfully so. However, Manticore does have an exotic catalyst, which actually grants you the perk Flying Monster. It states that final blows with this weapon while airborne grant damage resistance. Now, depending on that level of damage resist, it may be worth using. Matter of fact, we're going to be doing a build with Manticore and Flying Monster and pairing it with some Void 3.0 builds, as I do think that even though this is a much different play style than what you're accustomed to inside of PvE, it may be something you want to consider leaning into with that 40% buff. And again, you don't have to go high in the air. Literally just suspend your feet just a little bit, do some damage, and boom, you have those Anti-Grav repulsors locking you in place. Now, for PvP, I was actually impressed with its range. This weapon actually has damage fall off beginning around 21 meters. Put that in perspective, guys. Funnel Web, which is actually one of my favorite SMGs in the game, with a max range roll, range masterwork, plus rangefinder, full bore, everything, you're looking at about 23.33 meters. And if you didn't have rangefinder on your Funnel Web, then you're looking at 21 meters on that one as well. And that's with a very high range roll. So Manticore actually has some pretty healthy range, and that's really due to the fact that it has a base zoom of 15. So it's putting it in line with things like submission, multi-mac. Those SMGs definitely are known for having really long reach due to their base zoom being higher. Matter of fact, quick side note, escape velocity actually has one of the best base zooms in the game. With that being said though, don't expect to go out there and really like tie up into that mid-range. That's not what this SMG is for. It's for melting everything within that 20 meter range, and it does so phenomenally. Its weapon consistency is really, really good, and we even played with it on controller, and I was very impressed with how well the weapon maintained itself. The combination of arrowhead break on this gun, its recoil direction being maxed out, that fitted stock there, that brings the stability up to 78. This is a very consistent SMG. Now, some questions about those Anti-Grav repulsors. Does the flotation or the suspension in the air transfer to other weapons? Meaning, could I perhaps rock a sniper rifle, suspend myself with the SMG, and then swap over to the sniper and then shoot from the air? No, doesn't work that way. Matter of fact, the moment you swap to another weapon, the anti-grav, of course, shuts off because you're stowing the gun and you'll just drop. Now, matter of fact, this is actually the only way, at least to my knowledge, that you can turn the anti-grav repulsors off. You can't just like press the jump button or your sprint button or something else to suddenly cut those repulsors off. You either have to A, wait for the repulsors to cut off by themselves, which is really not that long, or B, swap to another weapon, which would then turn it off. The good thing is when you swap to another weapon and then swap back to the Manticore, the charge that you had accumulated before is still there. It's not like a terrible situation where like when you stow the weapon, some of its charge goes away. And I really do love that we have that meter there, and I wish we had something like that for Terrible, as it's a great visual indicator of when the weapon is fully charged. Now, the 40% buff that you get inside of PvE, this doesn't matter if the gun is fully charged or not, and the same goes for PvP. That 22 to 18% buff you get inside of PvP, you don't have to have the weapon fully charged in order to get the benefits of those buffs. Simply just get a little bit of damage on an enemy while grounded, and then you can take to the air. Now, we'll mention that you can get some charge from the air if you land shots on enemies. You just won't get past that initial bump there in energy. Now, a synergy that we were really curious about, what happens when we pair it with the exotic Wings of Sacred Dawn? This is actually a Warlock chest armor piece that actually comes with the exotic perk Tome of Dawn, which says that when Dawn Blade is equipped, aiming weapons while you're midair suspend you there for a short time, improving airborne accuracy, reducing incoming flinch, and granting damage resistance. Weapon hits extends the effect's duration. Also provides a large benefit to the airborne effectiveness stats of all weapons. Now, I was more or less curious about its Soaring Fang exotic trait on Manticore. Like, was there some weird synergy here that while dealing damage, aiming down sights with Wings of Sacred Dawn from the air, would that somehow charge the weapon's anti-grav repulsors? No, it consumes it just like it would without Wings of Sacred Dawn. However, every benefit that we just mentioned a second ago with Tome of Dawn, including that plus 50 airborne effectiveness, the reduction there in flinch, the damage resist, all of that definitely benefits Manticore and its playstyle. More so than that, I'm really curious to see how Flying Monster and that exotic catalyst, how that pairs with the damage resist on Wings of Sacred Dawn. Overall, guys, this is a very interesting SMG. It's Vice, and I love Vice. I think they literally make like the best SMGs in the game. And considering the upcoming change that's coming, whether it's halfway through the season or in Lightfall to airborne effectiveness, Manticore, I believe, is only going to get better. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.